From Bias to Equality podcast is brought to you by the CEO Magazine and B2Buy.
Hello, welcome to my podcast From Bias to Equality. I'm your host, Sandra D'Souza. Thank you for joining us. Today, for this episode, we are going to have a conversation with Terri Martin about empowering diversity and inclusion in the workplace through effective communication and leadership training. Terri's career journey started in marketing agencies and TV, both in Sydney and London. Over time, she progressed to heading up and running businesses in the marketing, communications, NFP, and education sectors. In her current role as head of NIDA corporate training, Terri oversees the delivery of hundreds of professional development training courses to some of Australia's top organisations and government departments. For the past 30 years, NIDA corporate training has been utilising NIDA's world-renowned teaching techniques to empower individuals and teams to build their confidence, presence, and communication skills so they and their organisations can thrive and succeed. NIDA corporate training stands at the forefront of the industry, specialising in communication, presentation, and leadership training. Their expertise is evidenced by their extensive range of clients they've assisted, which includes hundreds of Australia's top-tier organisations and government departments. Terri is also Vice Chair on the board of ADHD Australia, and in 2016 was awarded one of only 30 coveted places on their Marketing Academy Leadership Program. Added to this, she regularly mentors young women in their careers, plus is a proud mother to two amazing humans, so she understands the joy and challenges of juggling parenthood with a fulfilling career. Hi, Terri. Thank you so much for joining us here on our podcast today.
Hi, Sandra. It's a real pleasure to be here with you.
Well, I can't wait to get you started, and especially asking you to help our amazing women who follow our podcast in effective communication and to basically that helps them leadership. But before we get started on that, I think we just really want to learn more about you. And if you could share us about your career journey, kind of like how it led you to this role.
So I did a business degree. I did a double major in marketing management, and with absolutely no idea what I wanted to do when I actually got into the workforce. And by kind of just by chance, I landed in agency land, which was very creative. I probably didn't even realize that I love creativity, but I do. I love working around it, being around it. It's part of my personal life, my work life, etc. So started in kind of agencies, moved on to TV. Over in London, I worked for Nickelodeon. Came back to Australia, again back in agencies. Had my son, so had a bit of time away, and then kind of tiptoed back into agencies and back into client side, still in that marketing space. Then I landed in an advertising agency, which I actually really loved. Had my daughter, and then came back, after maternity leave, and tried to do the 3 days a week in an agency, which was just a disaster. It quickly went to 5 days. And I think I got my first real taste of the challenges that come with trying to be a parent and trying to mindfully progress in your career in certain industries, especially. So I got a real taste of that challenge, and also just the mental load, which I could talk to you for hours about, but just trying to balance all that was just really stressful, really hard. I then kind of moved up the ladder and moved to agencies that perhaps weren't so demanding of my time. And I worked in a presentation agency, and it was there that I got this kind of passion for helping individuals, because when you help someone write a presentation or design a presentation, you make them look really good. But at the same time, they're actually doing it for their organization too. And I've got a real commercial head on me, so I quite like that. So I got this kind of taste for that world, which was, when people actually stand in front of an audience and have to give their best self and have their best kind of, I guess, their performance, let's call it. It's not the right word, but essentially that's what it is. You've got one chance to get it right. It's a high stakes, environment. Towards the end of that role, I got a little bit tired of sometimes dealing with procurement and being cut down on cost and being told to do things faster. And it started to wear thin on me, because I believe very strongly in really big, relationships with my clients and working as a team. So I wanted to get into kind of more purposeful work. So I took a leap of faith and went and ran an NFP called Dimmick's Children's Charities. And then after that, I worked for Youth Off the Streets. So I got right into the for purpose area. And that in those environments, they're both rewarding, but also challenging in different ways, very low budgets. Sometimes, there are ways of working that can be very slow. People have a lot of passion, but not always a lot of experience. And so you're dealing with a whole different set of challenges that I probably went in with, no idea about, really. I just kind of was like, this is going to be great. And, so, and then I also really took a step back and thought, I can do the for purpose. I can do that in my personal life if I want to. I don't have to as work. So then I got back in, back on the horse again, and back into agencies and into education and even running my own business. But and then I also joined ADHD Australia on the board as a non-executive director and vice chair. So I've got ADHD in my family, so there was a passion that was very close to me. So there I'm fulfilling my purpose. And then this role came up for NIDA. Now, there is a little bit of a backstory. I'll make it as quick as I can, but I had actually seen NIDA corporate training present at a networking event and was absolutely blown away by the tiny techniques that they taught us about how to hold yourself, how you project, your presence, your voice. And I was so amazed by it. I actually reached out to the team who presented and told them how amazing I thought it was. Fast forward a few months later, this role comes up. And I thought, this is absolutely the role for me. Not only is it helping individuals, it goes back to that kind of thing I mentioned before. It also helps organizations, and I am very keen to help, commercial organizations flourish. But we're also an NFP, so we give back to NIDA and we give back to the performing arts industry. So my husband and I talk about it. It's like the most incredible role for me. I'm so passionate about what we do. I love that I get to work in the most creative environment. Like I'm actually at NIDA in Kensington and, we've got students here. You'll hear them singing, you'll see them dancing. Like I just, every day I am so grateful to be in this environment. I feel like I've landed in the perfect place for me.
I was going to say, it ticks all the boxes. You've got the creativity, you've got the not-for-profit, you've got the corporate side. So it's just like tick, tick, tick.
I know. And back to that thing of helping individuals and watching them kind of transform, and then also helping organizations, because when you get the training right, it has such a huge impact. So I know don't worry, I'm very, very grateful. And I remind myself every day of how lucky I am to have a role that's really suited to me.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And so I guess with the work and what you're doing, and the reason why you're here on the podcast, do you want to share about your values and beliefs around gender equality? Do you want to, like, on a personal level? So do you want to share a little bit of that as well?
Yeah, of course. So I was raised by a working mother, both when she was married to my father, but also after he passed away. And I was just led to believe that, we have the God-given right to have children, but to also work and to contribute. So that was kind of ingrained in me from a very, very young age. And I'm a huge believer that we need equality. But I do think there's a huge challenge with that. Of course, we know that, but not necessarily always in the workplace as well. Especially if you're a mother, I like to talk about that mental load and how hard that is for women to manage a household whilst also trying to raise up the ladder and take on more responsibility in their roles. If you're constantly thinking about, have I packed the lunch? Did I pay for the camp? Where's my child going to go on holidays? Like if you're thinking about all that detail, it's no wonder women burn out. It's no wonder they can't get any further. And so I believe in equality, but I believe we have to look at it at every kind of area in a person's life. And sometimes we can't avoid that. So I'm a solo mum. I have remarried, but my husband doesn't live in the same state. So I raised my children for the past 14 years on my own. So I can't avoid that mental load, but it's about my, managers being aware that I'm trying to manage that and also recognizing that I can't do everything and that, and just being mindful. I think there's something to be said about managers that kind of get it and that there's never a need to apologize, or there's just a really kind understanding. It's okay. You don't have to apologize. I get it. It's all right.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot to be said for that, to having an environment that says it's okay to juggle what you're juggling. It's okay not to get it all right. We know you're doing your best. Just keep doing your best. So, yeah, I think it's got to be both a work. There's so many different levers you have to pull to get equality. We're not there yet, and I think that there's a lot we could do.
Can I just explore a little bit on that before we talk about the NIDA programs? Because I do talk about that when I go out on the speaking engagement. And I think that managers will it helps if the men, for example, I talk about the stats, if the men take up more of the primary parental leave and share the load. At the moment in Australia, and I probably should look at the global because this podcast is global, and it'll be interesting to see how it also rolls out in the rest of the world. But only 13% of men take up primary parental leave. And when it comes to and this is, I mean, obviously it's different from the solo parent side of things, but even in household, when it's shared between men and women take up a lot of the caring duties and house duties. And so if the men take up a lot more of that and share that and ask and at work ask for, like, I need to be at home for the kids. I can't do networking events, or can work pay for, somebody has suggested can work pay for the babysitting so that I can attend the conference or I can attend things like as a work expense. I mean, all of that would help to make it easier for the mums to be able to balance work and home. You know, like the little things like that, like, you know, it's okay to claim travel expense or taxi to go to the airport, but what about babysitting expense to attend an event, you know?
Yeah, that's right. Instead of it always falling on somebody else in the household, you know, when maybe they're also trying to juggle their work as well. There's so much there. In fact, actually, my husband and I were talking about this, and we're talking about that paternity leave that is available in some organizations, you know, hopefully more now. I don't know anything about the stats. And he was saying he's worked in very male-dominated areas in the seafood fishing industry. And he was just saying what's really terrible is that even for men who want to take it, often there's a bit of that feeling of, oh, what are you taking that for? Very old-fashioned, but it still exists. So it's not that the man doesn't want to take it. It's that feeling that he's less than or not good enough if he does.
Correct,
so there's
correct.
so many layers.
It is. No, you're absolutely right. The reason why there's a low take up is because there is a stigma that if they take up, it will affect their career, and that they're seen as not as hard worker, which is all the elements that women had. If they want to take up maternity leave, that will affect the career that we know we were exposed to some of the discussions 20 years ago. And one of the things that I said, let's show my age, 20 years ago, because I had to decide if I want to progress my career, I actually had to choose whether I wanted to be single, not have children, or pursue my career, because you couldn't do both.
Wow,
And because if you want to take maternity leave, it will affect your career, kind of like one of the options, because they won't. And it was the same thing. And you're right. One of the low take up is because there is a stigma for men at work, especially male-dominated industry.
And then there's another side too, Sandra, is that ingrained in a lot of women is this feeling that we should, and I'll use that word specifically because it's a very bossy word, but we should be cleaning, we should be taking care of the kids, we should be doing this, we should be cooking, even if we don't like any of those things, and maybe our partner's better at them. But there's that, it's so ingrained in us. And I've fallen prey to that, where I've been like, well, I'll just do it because you don't do it so good. Well,
yeah, we do a better job.
I do a better job. Just leave it out of the way. And then they're like, sweet, I don't have to do it.
No.
And then that contributes more. So there's so much nuance to it.
I know.
And I don't think it's fair to say it's just an employer problem. As long
No.
as the employees are doing something, we've
Yes.
also got to challenge, our beliefs
Correct.
and our systems and
Correct.
be willing to actually say, no, I'm actually going to do things differently. So
Correct. It is
yeah,
complex. It is a complex issue. I know. I'm not
is.
definitely I'm not saying it's an employer problem and blaming
No,
and
no.
but certainly there is that also unconscious bias that
Yes.
we put the pressure on ourselves,
Yeah.
but there is also the men who don't, also have the unconscious bias who fails. Well, there's a men's job and a women's job, and then there is there is this complex, and then there's a whole bunch of various things. But what we do need to recognize the mental load for
Yeah.
women and the challenges is there, and how we need to address it still needs to be addressed, but there is no straightforward answer to say, well, if we do A, B will be fixed, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's
And it's that difference too of going, yes, we're all for gender equality in this organization, but are you really, like, are you saying it, or does it feel like it at every single interaction with every single person, you're getting support, people are okay with you taking paternity leave? It's not just it's not kind of the processes in
yeah,
place. It's also the things that are said around the edges that make it
correct.
truly believed. So it's very nuanced, and it
I
is
know.
something I'm actually passionate about, because I've worked my whole career with children. I was raised by a mother, did that. My children have seen that I've worked. And I believe we have a right to be equal. But it does come with challenges, and it's just understanding what those are and how that's not all the women's. It's not all the women's job to resolve them as well.
Correct. And I guess this is kind of like this is why I guess what like I'm doing with Elect and Elect Stars, that it highlights the company are committed from the top, who do have women represented well from the top, because that means that they do believe and they are
Yes.
saying what they're saying from the top and not just
Yeah.
putting policy in, but then they only
Yeah.
don't have the representation from the top. And that's the
Yes.
research is showing those who are actually just saying it but not doing it, and those who are actually doing it from the top. But the kind of now, I mean, we're here to talk about also the program, which actually kind of like is a good way to, with what you're saying and the challenges. So how for women who then want to aspire to leadership roles, and aside from obviously we talk about the challenges, at home and the mental load,
Mm.
there are also other challenges when it comes to aspiring for leadership roles, and when it comes to the presentation that you talk about,
Yeah.
which is another challenge in itself. So do you want to talk about that, like what not just the program, but where did this all come from? Like, what are the challenges that women do face when it comes to the communication side, and how it can affect their desire wanting to progress towards leadership, that it actually has prevented them. There's one element of it. Obviously, there's others,
Sure.
but this
Yeah.
element of it.
And when I talk, Sandra, I'm going to generalize. So
Yeah,
I
of
know I'm
course.
not talking all women. So I just
Of
want to make
course.
that clear.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
generally speaking, what we tend to find with the participants who come to our training, and just for context, we focus on communication, presentation, and leadership skills. So we do a whole raft of, we've got 11 public courses that anyone can sign up to, and then we offer a whole heap of customizable courses for organizations who want to train teams, and they want to do courses that are specific to their organization's needs. So what we find with the participants, and we have slightly more women that come than men, is women just tend to naturally communicate differently. So keep in mind, these are a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people who are coming up the ranks. So they're obviously just coming into management roles. They're often very, very smart and very good at their jobs and very good knowledge holders, but perhaps articulating that knowledge to more senior stakeholders is where they start to notice that there's challenges. But women tend to be softer. They tend to make more apologies for, even sometimes in their body, not taking up too much space. I'm just kind of sorry I'm here and I apologize. And they tend to have challenges with communicating, especially with quite aggressive male colleagues. Some are their peers, some are their bosses, some are people that work for them. And so, but they want to be true to themselves. They're kind of saying, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be aggressive and loud and brash. But traditionally, that's how we see confidence, right? Is the loudest guy in the room with the big booming voice. And, that's that traditional stereotype of what we think confidence is. But we all know that's not really confidence. And often it's making up for lack of something. But what we actually, you like that one? Yeah.
I do like that one.
Yeah. But what we're actually trying to do is allow people, especially women, to just be in their bodies and use their voice in a considered way that's right for them, but also ensure that their body language is open and does say confidence as well, because it's all the little things. It's hunched shoulders. It's not looking in your eyes. It can be wavy voices, or even when we go up at the end of sentences, it's a very female thing. And those small things, can take away, I think, sometimes from people's intelligence and their capability. And the voice can make people look flaky and not have the gravitas that I do believe you need as you start to go up in the line of command, and become more senior. So it just tends to be that women, unfortunately have more of that to work with. And don't get me wrong, because I've done the training, and I've seen men in that space as well, but it tends to be more women are in that space. So we work with that, and we work with the individuals to elevate them, and get them to a space that they feel comfortable in. We're not trying to make people actors. We're not trying to make people something that they're not. We're just trying to get them to that next level that feels like them, but just feels more confident, calm, more present, more gravitas, more considered. And I think there's a lot to be said when you can get someone to that point.
And I like there's a few things I picked up what you've said, because you're not, I guess, telling women to say you have to behave like men. You're not changing them to behave in a way that's different from their core or their personality. It's almost, the program is about giving them techniques to be seen and heard.
That's 100% what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for who they are.
For who they are. Yeah.
And I tell you, Sandra, the transformation is unbelievable. I've watched it before my eyes, and it's often the people with the least confidence who actually get the most out of it, because those slight shifts in body language and the way they project themselves and the way they hold themselves makes a huge amount of difference. And it's actually one of the most joyous things to watch, if I'm honest.
So can we, with that though, so I guess I talk about bias a lot, unconscious bias. And so can you give me an example in a room? So let's talk about it in a boardroom. And this is obviously general, hypothetical example. And we don't have specific examples here to give, but a general example using bias to show our audience, like in a room full of in a board where, let's say, it's all men who are used to certain behavior when somebody walks in and does a presentation, what they watch for, and what for them, that tells them that person knows what they're talking about and that they would listen. I am putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no,
but
that's
I guess
fine.
so I guess what they would perceive because that's bias, isn't it? Because what you're talking about, like you're talking about somebody who basically they know their stuff. So a woman who knows her stuff, who knows the material, walks into the room, and the difference between, you're saying, like looking inward to looking confident, for the boardroom to believe in her, basically, isn't it? So do you want to take us through that a little bit?
Of course. So the first thing would be even how she walks in the room.
Okay.
So it's small things like your head is up, you look at everybody, you give eye contact, because that says confidence, right? I'm not hiding anything if I'm looking at everybody in the eye. It can just be, head up, shoulders slightly back. We're not exaggerating. We're not asking you to pull, but just that sense. And we're not racing in. We're coming in, we're considered, and there's pauses. So if you've ever seen a really good presenter, and we often think about people like Obama, a lot of pauses in the way he talks. And what pauses do is allow people time to think about what you've said. So it's when then she's up presenting, again, it's back to eye contact and making sure you're connecting with your audience. It's slowing everything down. We have a whole heap of techniques that work on nerves because we all get affected by nerves. And it's a lot around breathing and making sure, because often it will come out in things like a wobbly voice. So that, and then that people go, oh, she's not very confident because she's nervous. It's not true, right? You can be really confident, but you can still be nervous. So we're trying to take away all those, I guess, those cues that tell someone this person doesn't know what they're saying. They're not confident in how they say it. They're worried about delivering this presentation. When you start to take all that away, people listen, don't they? And then they believe you. Even if the same thing was said, you know, in the other scenario, it can be all the same information, but it is so powerful to think about how you deliver it. So considered, calm, eye contact, it's your gestures. And really, you could actually, you know, do a blind test and have the same person coming in. Sorry about that. The same person coming in and looking not confident versus somebody who comes in and has done our training, the difference would be huge. And so, like I said, delivering the same presentation, but it's all in how they actually deliver it. And I you know, what people don't realize is within communication, only 7% are the words. 7%. Then the other 93% is the voice and how you say it and your body language. So that's when you kind of work that out. And we spend so much time on the words, right? You rewrite your presentation, you rewrite it again.
Actually, I spent a lot of time on the PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, absolutely. So it's fascinating. It's but when you can actually watch it in motion, you go, wow, that's because that says to me you're a leader. That says to me you know what you're talking about. That says to me that I can trust you. And then I can believe what you're saying. So it is biases.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a very controversial question, also putting you on the spot. So do you think, and this is personal opinion, not research or anything like that. I wish I had looked this up before, but again, that scenario, the hypothetical situation in a boardroom with men and you're coming in to present, the bias, right? So when the same presentation, same topic, if a man walks in compared to a woman walks in, so when a man walks in, there is already an assumption that the man knows more than the woman walks in. So would you say, and again, I know it's a personal opinion thing, unless you have the research, but my assumption would be that the woman, it's already, you know, there is a little bit more convincing of the board that she's an expert on the topic because there is that natural bias of assuming the man knows more than the woman. And so there is that extra importance that she needs to have that skill set of presenting so that she could quickly get the boardroom to not even just boardroom of men, but the boardroom of men and women, because women also have the similar unconscious bias, to quickly convince them in the room to say, okay, she knows her stuff, really, like with the body language. I don't know if I asked that question correctly, and I don't want to offend anybody on the podcast, but you know, whether you know, whether you have the research or whether that, you know, in your line of work, or if you want to share, that's your personal opinion, in this hypothetical situation, that you think that's also something that's important to, well, if that's a reality in 2024.
Look, I don't have any data, and I've found that I've often worked in organizations that have a high rate of women in them, a high level. So, but I would say in male dominated industries, 100%, you know, that and I've and I'll talk later about one of our specific courses called Influential Women that is specific only for female identifying people. So I'll talk about that in a sec. But in that, you hear a lot of women come who've actually work in male dominated areas. It's not just for those types of people, but they do come because they're struggling. because they've got to work twice as hard for people to listen to them, believe them, because they're not acting like the men. And because
Okay.
that environment expects or is used to the men acting a certain way, communicating in a certain way. And so, yeah, they feel like they're on the back foot. So, we go back to that point, they're struggling because they're like, I don't want to be like that though. I don't want to
Yeah.
act like that. How do I amplify me? And they don't know how. And of course, our courses help them just with that. So I do think
Okay.
there's bias, especially in certain areas. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, good. So I'm glad I did put you on the spot then.
Yeah.
So tell me about this influencer program then.
Yeah. So it's called Influential Women, and we created it because we did notice that there were common themes with some of our female attendants, where they were facing similar challenges around communication scenarios, whether it be with their boss, whether it be with co-workers, even perhaps their subordinates. And we wanted to create a program that was very, very safe, that was very supportive, that was really non-judgmental. So it's a 2-day course, and there's only 8 participants, so it's very intimate. Everyone's encouraged to be open. There's just no judgment, and keep in mind, very senior people do this course as well. So it's not just for people who are coming into the start of their career, or although I would love to see every woman does this course when they finish high school.
Yeah.
But there's very, very senior women in this course as well. And what it does a number of things. So we have 2 different things. So one is we have a communicate. We take them through all the training. Like, these are all the things to think about: your body, your voice, how you present. The video you presenting right at the start of the course, and you think you've done okay. No, it turns out you could definitely do better. They also do a communication exercise. So you choose a challenging communication scenario, and it might be something you've got with your boss, and we have a role play actor comes in and actually acts the part of that person. Now, I watched people cry because they were so confronted by the actor being so similar to their boss or their co-worker, and they were so frustrated by the situation. But what happens is the tutor's coaching them through it. No, sit up tall. No, say this. No, interrupt him, put your hand up and say, please, I need you to stop talking. It's all these wonderful techniques that you would never normally do yourself. And because you've got someone coaching you through it, and where all the other women are sitting there going, you did great, that was amazing. And it's this incredibly, you can't describe it, because I've done the course and I was blown away by it. I was like, I wish I could tell everybody about this course. But then you also get to do a presentation at the end. Same thing. They get you to walk in the room. They practice how you look at everybody. They're thinking that you think about how, it doesn't matter what you're presenting, it's about how you present it. So after this 2-day course, what happens is your confidence is built. You learn how to deal with more challenging communication circumstances, which is no one really teaches you how to do that. I know you can have people say, oh, you might want to say this and you might want to say that. But if you're dealing with someone quite aggressive or someone who's got a very different communication style to you, you're never taught how to manage that. Another course I went into, someone was dealing with stakeholders in India, and they had a very different communication style than her, and she was struggling to get her voice over. So again, they coached her through it. They did set it up, role play actors, and she was fantastic by the end of it. And again, we're just not taught those skills. The other thing in Influential Women is you've got this camaraderie where everyone wants everyone to succeed by the end of the 2 days. And because you've got different levels of expertise, everyone is cheering everyone on for whatever challenges they're trying to get through at that point. And we created a little bit of a network that can happen sometimes too. You stay in touch and you watch people get awards and get promoted and get new jobs, and you cheer them on, because you know that was because of the training that helped.
Oh, that's
It's
lovely.
phenomenal. It's the words that people use are transformational, life-changing, and I would 100% agree, having done the course myself.
Oh, wow. Well, this sounds really good.
Yeah.
And I guess, well, do you know what? I can keep going, and I just noticed the time, so I really have to wrap this up. I could really keep going. So I guess, so my last question to you, Terri, is that with everything that you've just shared with us, what advice would you give to women who are looking to step up to leadership roles and might be considering a NIDA corporate course to help them achieve that goal?
I cannot recommend it enough. Now, I know that I obviously am in the role, but I talk from someone who's done the course myself and was blown away. And I did one of the courses before I even started in the role. These are the skills that you're not taught. And if you really want to have that kind of gravitas as a leader, these are the things that will get you over the line. We have so many people say to us, after the course, I got a promotion. After the course, I got a new job. We have people come up to us all the time. In fact, the biggest way we get business is referrals and word of mouth. That continues to be the way we get business, because people tell their friends and say, you have to do this course. And I don't think there's anything better than that to demonstrate the power of it. So I would highly recommend it. I think it's the missing link for women in their leadership journey, is to how they are projecting themselves and how they can just slightly tweak and improve that to be able to give them some gravitas and some presence that we all recognize in really good leaders. And it can be taught, and it is by our NIDA tutors.
Wow, that's great. I think referrals, like you said, referrals is really an indication of how people love your courses, and telling everybody word of mouth. It's definitely an indication.
Oh, and Sandra, you'd be amazed at who we've trained. I can't say them, but we train so many of Australian organisations. Like, our client list is beyond anything I've ever experienced. So the amount of people and organisations, and that's everything from banks to all the top consulting firms, to tech companies, to universities, to government departments, we're already training them. So I think that's the other thing to be mindful of, is you need to give yourself an advantage, and your organisation as well, because your competitors might be doing this already, and it will make the difference, I think, to an organisation, not just individuals, but also to the business.
Well, that's good to know. Well, Terri, thank you so much for being part of this podcast interview. I really appreciate the time and sharing, I guess, learning about you, as well as sharing what NIDA, which is, the best performing arts organization, but it's really also good to know about the corporate training program and how it can help women to succeed and achieve their journey into their leadership roles that they really wanted to get there. So on that note,
thank you so much, Sandra. Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Terri. Well, I just for everyone here, I just want to take a moment to thank you for listening and to express my gratitude for following yet another episode of From Bias to Quality. Don't forget that you can get a copy of my Amazon bestselling book and at any good online book sites. Thank you for tuning in, and see you again soon.
Today's episode is brought to you by our wonderful sponsors. Firstly, we're sponsored by B2Buy. B2Buy is your trusted business buying platform that simplifies and automates your buying process, helping you buy smarter and faster, giving you greater visibility and value. With 100,000 products in one place, B2Buy is passionate about connecting diverse suppliers with corporate buyers, so you can create a more inclusive business environment and buy better with www.b2buy.online. Our second sponsor is the CEO Magazine, an iconic, global media brand that inspires and promotes excellence within the business world. It is a source of information, inspiration and motivation for the world's most successful leaders, executives, investors and entrepreneurs. Go to www.theceomagazine.com.